How was lunch? Good. Okay, so we thought we'd wrap up the day, and I'm delighted that Sheila is here with us, so she can join me. But I think it's always nice after the intensity of the presentations and all the science and all of that stuff to kind of talk more practically from a patient perspective, and we'll be open to any questions that you have or anything like that too. So I'll just start, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sheila, because we've got two little, I think, different iterations on the theme. As I mentioned earlier, I was diagnosed in 1991, very similar to everybody else. I had a rash around my waist. Went to a dermatologist. They said, oh, use these creams, use these lotions, and it didn't go away. And I went to about 5 different dermatologists over the course of a year. I didn't like what any of them told me. Not always the most compliant patient. And I finally landed with a derm. I went at my lunch hour one day because someone referred me, and she took my history. She looked at me, with the little glasses, and you're there in the lovely paper gown, and they're checking you out and all that stuff. And she said, called her colleague in, and she said, I think you have a very rare form of cancer, mycosis fungoides. I'm taking a biopsy, and I'm sending you to an expert. And I went, what? Are you kidding me? You've got to be out of your mind. I have this stupid rash around my waist. It's no big deal. And it totally freaked me out. Totally freaked me out. I went back to my office and I said, I have to leave. I have to go talk to my mom, because I was 31 years old and I was alone, and I was just petrified. And I went down to see the expert, who at the time was one of very few experts in the field, Dr. Eric von der Heide, who's since retired. And I started on PUVA treatments, one of the few treatments available back then in 91, and it worked for a while, and that was great. And then it stopped working. And I tried the topical nitrogen mustard, which is not in the FDA-approved formulation. It came in a little brown bottle, and I had to reconstitute it with water and then paint it on my body. And that worked for a while, and then it went off the market. We couldn't get it. And then anyway, my disease, I was in a very small population of people with mycosis fungoides whose disease progressed. But it was a slow progression over the course of about a 6 to 7 year window. And, we tried all the different treatments that were available at the time, which was not much. We had UVA, PUVA. There was no UVB yet. We had the topical nitrogen mustard, interferon. There was photopheresis, but it wasn't widely used, so it was very dependent on the physicians and the centers. That was pretty much it. And my disease progressed to patches, plaques, and tumors. And by 1998, I had tumors pretty much everywhere in my head, my face. I had red, scaly patches, weeping, every itch beyond hard. Didn't sleep for several years. And I was headed, the only option available to me at the time was a simple transplant, which in 98 was pretty scary. And in order to get my disease under control before I could go down that path, we did targeted electron beam radiation. So I worked with a phenomenal radiation oncologist who had worked with my expert, and I spent 3 months doing radiation, and we did all segments of my head, and they didn't tell me they were taking me up to the point of total hair loss, but I did get hair back, but came back curly, thinner, and a lacquer hair. But anyway, and that worked for me. And what we were talking about, if I had been seen by a community oncologist, they would have immediately given me chemotherapy, pulled out all the big guns, because I had swollen lymph nodes. I had a lymph node in my neck that they did a needle biopsy. They couldn't find disease. They eventually took the lymph node out, and there was not disease in it. If you looked at me, you would have said, this woman is, she's done. And I was just fortunate to be with experts in the field. The radiation worked amazingly beautifully. And then I did a course of interferon injections for 6 months. And I did really well for a couple of years. And then my disease came back and I had some lesions on my feet and some others. So I went back and did some radiation and then my interferon. And I did that combination for 10 years after. So, you know, that's how my disease kind of manifests. And my last round of treatment was in 2010. You know, so I think the important thing is we all have to know our disease and how it manifests. And I think what I've learned, and I have the privilege now of listening to the science and meeting the clinicians globally, you know, there's so much going on that we're in such better shape now than when I was not doing very well. And there's so much hope. And I think the other piece is we all have to know our disease and how it manifests, because we're the best. We know best if something's changing or something's different. And so again, I go back to applauding everybody for coming and for being willing to learn and to understand. And, you know, it's something that we live with. You know, it's my constant companion. I've been living with this lovely partner that I didn't ask for 30 years, you know, and I'm probably going to die with it. But I've learned slowly and along the way, how do you emotionally manage what works for me may not work for you, but, you know, paying attention to those things and being able to share, I think sometimes is really important. And I didn't do that so well for a long time. And I've learned that it really helps to be able to share it and allow the people that love you to understand kind of what's going on in your head and what you're afraid of, and to be able to find some people that you can really be vulnerable and let people know, you know, sometimes it's scary, you know, and if you try to do it on your own, believe me, it's not always the best thing, because I tried it. So I'm going to turn it over to Sheila and let you share a little bit about your journey and experience.
Sure. So in 2005, I had a breakout, the round flat patches. Had a few like on both sides of my hips, and that was about it. And I went to the allergist because I was that kid who had to have an allergy shot once a week. So I'm thinking maybe my allergies are flared up. He sent me to a dermatologist. The dermatologist took a skin biopsy because he said, I think you may have this rare skin disease. Never mentioned the word lymphoma, never mentioned the word cancer. Had topical steroids, and it seemingly went away. It was gone, like poof, gone. I'm like, okay. So then I go back to life as normal. So 6 years later, I have another breakout. It was the exact same. And because I was that kid who had allergies and eczema growing up, I wasn't buying that whole eczema thing. I'm like, this is not eczema. Eczema does not look like that on me. I don't know what this is. So I saw let me back up a little bit. So during that 2005 period, my lead dermatologist sent me to another dermatologist who had more experience with African American skin. And together, neither one of them came up with anything. So in 2011, pops back up, all the allergist. He says, Sheila, I think you're dealing with an autoimmune thing. Go back and see the dermatologist. I go back and I see the African American dermatologist, because the other one has moved back east. On my chart, he had written, this patient should be tested for CTCL every 6 months. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's that? So when he said cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, now I'm at the doctor's office by myself. I said, wait a minute, that's cancer. And he said, yeah, it is. And I said, why come no one ever told me? And so, of course, that was my first experience with why I had to be my own patient advocate. I didn't ask a lot of questions back in 2005. I'm like, they're the experts, they know. I mean, which they do, but that was when I learned I have a responsibility and accountability myself. And so he said to me, he said, Sheila, I wasn't your lead doctor, so I just assumed your lead doctor told you that. He said, but I'm going to refer you over to the University Hospital. That's the University of Kansas Hospital. There's an expert over there who is amazing. His father had CTCL. He'll take good care of you. And that's when I was diagnosed. My skin biopsy, I was diagnosed as a 1A. I did have an enlarged lymph node, but there was no disease in it. And because he immediately had that removed. And I did phototherapy, 3 times a week, went into the booth, no clothes on, and with those cute little glasses on. And after about 6 months, my CD4 CD8 ratio went up. So at that point, I didn't really understand what all that meant. So he explained to me that when I was initially diagnosed, my CD4 CD8 ratio was slightly over 3-to-1. By 6 months later, it was 7-to-1. And so he said, now in the grand scheme of it, that's not really huge. He said, but it's going up instead of down. He said, so that lets me know that you now need systematic treatment. He said, I'm going to turn you over to, not necessarily turn you over to, but get involved with the oncologist, head of the bone marrow transplant team at KU. And so together they decided photopheresis was going to be my best treatment option. I initially started with 2 treatments every other week. And I did that for probably about 2 years. Then they took me to 2 treatments every 4 weeks, then 2 treatments every 6 weeks. I am currently on 2 treatments every 8 weeks. And I'm really hoping in January when I see my oncologist, because we've talked about this all this year, that if my numbers, my CD4, CD8 is steady, he's going to try me at 2 treatments every 12 weeks. And although I don't have the SS part of it, when I tell you the itching for me was unbelievable. And the skin shedding. My granddaughter used to say, Gigi, your itching crumbs are everywhere. I mean, it was my skin shed that bad. I had to change my sheets like every other day, and again, the itching is, it's, unless you've experienced that level of intense itching, people have no idea because it impacts your whole life, and I didn't get sick or anything like that. It was just, well, not until I had port, and before the port was ever accessed, I ended up with staph infection in the hospital 10 days. And yeah, that was a whole, so I'm very protective of my port. And I even, share with other patients who have to do the port. Most people don't even have to do the port, but those of us who do, I don't, on the 2 days of my treatment, I'm not going out socially. I keep that bandage on there because that 16-gauge needle is pretty big. And it leaves a little hole there. Although it almost immediately starts scabbing over, I just take extra precautions. Nobody's coming over. We're not having a nightcap. We're not doing none of that until 3 days later, because I want to make sure that I'm good. I've protected myself. And of course, my doctor's like, Sheila, you don't have to do all that. And I'm like, I'm the one living with this, not you. So, but I try to incorporate a lot of things. One of the physicians said, about like your diet and exercise. One of my dermatologist did say to me that, Sheila, if you're not already eating 6 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, you need to start. And thank God for my oldest daughter, because she's a vegetarian. And after my diagnosis, she came over to my house. Everything in my cupboard that was in a can or a box, she threw it out. She's like, you don't need to be eating none of this. You have to eat things, Mom, that are living. And so fruits and vegetables are always fresh. I go to the butcher and get my meat. For about 3 years, I didn't eat any meat, only fish. And even with that, never anything frozen because it's extra preservative. Now, this is all stuff just for me. In my mind, my doctors never said it makes a difference or not. But if I'm going to help my body fight, then what does that look like for me? That means I need to eat better, 80 ounces of water a day, get plenty of rest, and exercise on a regular basis. And it's 8 years later, I'm here.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So good. And I think that's a really good point that, we're all different. And I think one of the keys, at least one of the things that I've learned is, what works for me. And through my journey, when I was first diagnosed, it was kind of like, I'm in my early 30s. What on earth? Like, how did everyone else in my family's fine? No one's had this weird disease. I'm the only one that's this funky thing. What did I do? And it gave me the opportunity to take a step back and, in my 20s, I burned the candle at probably four ends. I worked a lot. I was putting myself through night school. I probably partied a little bit more than I should have. But, you think you're indestructible. I didn't take very good care of myself. And so when I was diagnosed, I thought, okay, what can I do for myself? So I went down a path as well, which was unusual in the 90s. It was before people really started talking about the impact of diet and exercise and things. But I went and tried to learn too. And I tried, I tend to be my own best guinea pig, right? So I went vegetarian, and then I became vegan, and then I tried macrobiotics, and I took amazing cooking classes. And, I then kind of came back to center, right? I took things that I learned, but to your point, by the time I was really sick, I had brought in a lot of different modalities. So for me, journaling has always been part of my life. So for me, working out my mental ramifications, how my mind was working, I did it through writing. And that was so important for me to be able to learn how to emotionally manage what my brain was talking to me about all the time. And so I did all of these different complementary things, and I took them all with me into my treatments in 98. And God bless my physicians. I love them to death, but I don't always agree with them. And I said, look, they're like, well, we don't know if that makes any difference. And I'm like, I really don't care what you think. I'm taking all this stuff with me. I did acupuncture. I tried for itch, which worked for a little bit. Acupuncture now for stress reduction, I think. For me, it worked really well. But, and for me, exercise was a big deal. I was a jogger. I'm not a runner because I don't do anything fast. But so I exercised. And, after my radiation treatments every day, I went for a run. And then I would do my own juicing because I wanted to get as much vitamins into my body as possible. And I do truly believe, and again, I am one person, but I think that all of those things in combination with the right treatment and the right physicians, I think that's what really helped to get me over the hump. And then I didn't need the stem cell transplant. And then I used exercise as my way of getting back into my life, and got involved in triathlons and a bunch of other things to raise money for cancer research, but also to prove to myself that I could trust my body again, and to have a better relationship with my body instead of seeing my body as separate from who I am. I am my body, and it's important for me to take care of it in the way that works for me. So, I think everybody has their own things that make their lives better. And I think it's really great if you can explore those and make sure you incorporate those, because it gets challenging sometimes to just be living with the disease, right, in the treatments.
Absolutely. One of the physicians mentioned about those lifestyle changes. He's mentioned the eyes. And one of them is, of course, taking care of yourself, those things that you have total control over. And I remember when I would go to photo therapy and get in that booth, and those few seconds seemed like a lifetime. And so I started developing just affirmations, to remind myself, like, this is not going to be it. I'm going to live to be a 90-year-old spunky woman. And this is not going to be it. Can't be. And so one of my favorite ones is, and I would just repeat it over and over, and not just repeat it, but visualize myself in that position. And it is, I am healthy. I am fit. I am the center of abundance, and I am perfect size 8. At that time, I was a perfect size 8. And it's just an even something. It's on my refrigerator, on my mirrors in my bedroom. And it's something simple as, today I choose faith over fear. Because if I'm scared of my MF, it's going to win in my mind. That's my thought. You know, if I don't equip myself with the knowledge and the education, and I'm not clear and communicate because I'm scared of it, I'm not going to hurt anybody but me. And so I'm like, yeah, we can't be scared of it, you know, and it is scary, you know. And so I dealt with that by just meeting it head on. Cooking is my therapy. And so I get in the kitchen and whip up something tasty, and that would help me get out of my head. You know, it was really difficult for me in the beginning because I'd recently lost my, you know, how to say your first cousins are, you know, your best friends. And she was my first cousin, and she had just lost her second battle of breast cancer about 6 months before I was diagnosed. Now, the irony is that I had that initial breakout before she was even diagnosed the first time. And so I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna die like my cousin? I mean, what is this? She and I are the only people that we know of in our family that have ever had any type of cancer. And we were the youngest and the most fit. And I'm like, what is going on here? But once I was able to wrap my mind around, and my healthcare team, I tell you, have been a godsend. And I say that, and I'm not an overly religious kind of person at all. But they communicate with me very well. And probably too, because I'm always like, no, what does this mean? And why come you didn't tell me this? Why I find this out on my own? And I have questions, I'm calling, you know, whatever it is, you know, I'm asking the nurse, or I'm calling, I'm like, this is kind of weird, or this is different. What do I need to be doing? Do I need to come in? You know, whatever. And so I treat it like it is serious, because it is serious. I try to take very good care of myself. Now, of course, we probably all individually have our own theories about what happened. How was this able to come in? Back in 2005, I'd been in a very high stress position. And I believe that the stress level, I traveled like 40% of the time for work, and I was a single mom working on my master's degree, and a bunch going on. Why I try to do all that at the same time, I don't know. But now I'm like, after my diagnosis, I'm like, no, work cannot be stressful. And so I really am diligent about keeping my stress level down. And, you know, and whatever that means, if I have to stay away from certain family members, not go to an event, a family event, you know what? No, she was not coming because she's not dealing with y'all's stress. Because I have to protect me and my sanity and my stress level at all times. And rest. You know, I used to, you know, go out and mix and mingle a lot. And now my friends are like, you have turned into an old mermaid. I said, no, this sister is getting 8 hours of sleep a night, at least. And so because my rest is critical, my body regenerates, and my immune system needs for me to be fully rested. And so, you know, I just have had to make those changes in my you know, because our skin is dry. It don't hardly, you know, retain moisture and all of that. So I mix, and I told my dermatologist, and said, we're gonna come up, and you're gonna help me develop the science of this, so then we can sell this stuff, and we can both really get rich off of this. We can go around and sell it to everybody. But it has raw shea butter in it. And by raw shea butter, I mean it is the hardcore kind. It's kind of like it may be anywhere from a cream color to a yellow color, kind of a yellowish color. And you have to really warm it up in your hands before it smooths out. There's no fragrance in it, no perfume in it, nothing's been added to it. And then I take coconut oil and I mix those two together. And that is what I use to help my skin to retain moisture. And I'll tell you, my dermatologist is all about showering like a flower. And so I shower like a flower. And what that means is I probably take a shower 3 times, if that. In the wintertime, probably 2. No harsh soaps. All natural products. All my linen is white. No fragrance. You'll never come to my house and smell. I can smell the dryer sheets that smell all good. Yeah, you'll never smell those in my house because I can't use any of that. Or I've chosen not to use any of that because anything that can be an irritant to my skin, I've tried to eliminate it completely.
And I think that's all good, very good advice, right? And there's, and everybody's individual and everybody's different, but, we all figure out what works for us, but I think it's a conscious effort, right? It's something that each of us needs to think about what works for us. How do we incorporate that into our lives? And, skincare is really important. And I know, especially for the men in the room who aren't used to, slathering their skin with wonderful lotions and things, it really is, it's important, and it keeps that skin barrier in good shape. And that's one thing that is do nothing else, just lather your skin up with fragrance free. I'm going to use your coconut oil and raw shea butter. Yeah, because I use some different combinations of stuff like that too. But yeah, it's really important. And I know we're at a little after 2, and we have a question. We have questions.
As far as nutrients and vitamins, I've asked this team, and they don't want him to go on. Is there any?
I don't. I take high quality good vitamins, and I think that, especially for me, because I travel like an insane person, I need to really make sure that and I don't always eat as well as I would like if I was home. So I take really good high quality vitamins, a multi-spectrum, and I do fish oil, and I do, what else do I do? Like a CoQ10, things that really boost your immune system. Does it make a difference? I personally think it does. There's no science, and you probably won't get any physicians that'll tell you, and a lot of them, because they don't know, they're not trained in that. I think what I would say is do your homework, find a product that is quality. You probably pay more, but the stuff you get off the shelf, you don't know what's in it, so find a good quality, and just a multi-spectrum, and then eat well. Eat that lovely leafy greens are really good for you. I make a smoothie for myself every morning, and I toss in, kale and spinach. And if you mix it up with some nice fruit and some almond milk, and, you really can't taste the greens, and you get a whole day's serving all at one fell swoop. And that's how I start my day, pretty much every day. And I take that on the road with me. I have a high quality protein powder that I use, and sometimes I'll toss in some green powder when I'm on the road, just to get that extra boost of, again, I don't know if it works, but here I am 30 years, and kind of, yeah. We got a question back there. Use your thing. Yes. The surveys. Thank you, Deb. Yes, we do really appreciate the surveys. So give us your feedback, because we really need it. That's a really good question. For me, God, it was, well, yeah, I itched until I went into radiation. It was insane itch. I didn't know about wet wraps and other ways of trying to mitigate the itch. So I kind of just went through it. Sure. So wet wraps are, and sometimes you can use topical steroids. Put the steroid on first, and you take usually a pair of cotton pajamas, and you put them in warm water, and you put the wet pajamas on, and you can just moisturize your skin. Either you don't have to use steroids, moisturize your skin, put your warm, wet pajamas on, and then put dry pajamas or something else on top. Some people actually do wrap themselves in saran wrap or a sauna suit. You don't have to do that. But, and just stay in that for like 10 or 15 minutes. And it helps the moisture get into your skin. And a lot of times it can alleviate the itch enough sometimes so that you can fall asleep. Not that the itch won't come back in the middle of the night necessarily, but the other thing that I used to use was ice. So this itch tends to be, they're learning that it's a nerve itch. It's really, and so it's the impulse that goes up through your nervous system into your brain, and it's that mechanism through the nerve endings, and that's why you tend to feel itch all over. So if you start to scratch one area that itches, and then all of a sudden it seems to compound and get worse, if you can break that that mechanism to your brain, so do something, ice is a good way to do it. It's like an automatic thing in your brain, forgets that it's supposed to itch, and it's really cold. So that can sometimes just stop that impulse enough to get you to think about something else. And we have on the websites, there's a whole thing on wet wraps and other ways to manage itch and some things like that. Under resources and skincare. Deb knows that because she does the whole website and knows where everything is. You don't have anything else?
So itch, I would say my itch really did not go away until I was on photophoresis for probably about 3 to 4 months. And then it was like magically one day I was like, huh, I don't itch anymore. So yeah, so probably about almost a year it took me before I had no itch. And even, I mean, now I don't even remember the last time my skin itched. Or even the last time I've had I call them little flare-ups, but a little patch. It's been a while.
Great. Great. Well, another question back there.
General audience question. How many people you found some linkage through your clinic?
No, yeah, and to the best of our knowledge, scientifically, there's no genetic connection. So, well, that's interesting. More men than women, based on the statistics. But I will also say that we don't have one huge database globally that has everybody's information in it. So, I think that's hard to say. And then I also think people are misdiagnosed and undiagnosed. So, that's based on statistics as we know it, but whether they're actual is probably questionable because we just don't have really super great data. But we're working on it. There's the Cutaneous Lymphoma International Consortium, which is a group of clinicians around the world, and most of all the major treatment centers globally. It's a group where they're pulling together the data, and they did a retrospective study of all the data that was available through the individual institutions. I think there's 52 of them globally that are part of this consortium, including like Stanford and MD Anderson and I think KU's in there. But and to see if they looked at more advanced disease, to see if they could come up with any prognostic indicators. And they did come up men over 60 with high LDL levels, can't think of everything. I think those are the main things, have a higher predisposition of progressing if you're in more later stage disease. Not definitive, and statistics are, everybody can fall outside of the line of statistics, but they're now doing a prospective study, and they're starting to collect data. They've got about 1,000 patients that they've collected. They're part of the study, and they're starting to really gather that data globally to begin to look at prognosis and how do treatments work and things like that. So I think that's exciting because we're starting to pull this data together globally. There's not, 30,000, give or take, people diagnosed in the US. We probably have the highest, the largest group because it's such a big country, right? But we don't have good global data. So this is the first beginnings of really being able to pool that. And the more that we can understand, and for all of us, the more that we can donate our specimens to our physicians so they can include it in the research will really help. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sheila, for jumping in with me. This was fun. So I'm going to do a plug for our show in December. So Sheila's going to join me on our Facebook Live program, and I forget the date. Remind me. Do you remember December 11th? Deb has it. And she's going to be at home in her kitchen, and we're going to talk about the disease, and she's going to do some cooking demonstrations, and we're going to have a good time. Central Time. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. It's going to be really fun. Do something different. We usually do an interview with a physician. We'll be talking about lymphomatoid papulosis this month in October. And in November, we're going to have an open Q&A with Dr. Sarah Noor from Memorial Sloan Kettering. And then December, it'll be the Sheila and Susan show. Mostly Sheila, but she's going to cook and show us some of her really fabulous things that she does. Yeah, which I think will be kind of fun. And if you have any ideas of topics you'd like us to cover in our Facebook Live, let us know, write them on the evaluation, because we always want to know what you want to know, not just what we want to know. And we'll find people and clinicians, and, we'll do our best to do that. Yeah. Yes. Sure. So, and I was just in New York with a group of patients and Dr. Geston, and we were talking about vinegar baths. So they're both very similar. Vinegar, just white, vinegar that you can buy in a huge cup in a bath, similar bleach in a bath. And both of them have antibacterial. And because our skin tends to be somewhat compromised, doing those kinds of baths, can help with itch, and also takes kills that bacteria on the skin, which then helps alleviate itch and can also help to keep the skin there intact. And then you get out of your bath and do what you said and slather yourself with some really great skin creams. Well, it depends on your disease. So if you're early stage disease, you could probably do that once a month, and that would be fine. But if you're itching and if your skin is more, if you have a little more disease, you might want to do it once a week, kind of get a sense. And, you won't smell like bleach or vinegar. I think vinegar is probably a little bit less intense than the bleach. So you might want to start with vinegar. It does the same thing. And it stabilizes your pH in your skin. So it's a really good, actually, I think for probably anybody, it's not a bad idea. Plus you get to relax in the bath, and you get to do a little of those, do your affirmations and a little stress reduction. You close the door and tell everybody to leave you alone for 20 minutes. Not a bad thing. Listen to some great tunes. Yeah, really good for you. Up in a tub. Yeah, Dennis. Right. Oh, yeah, that'll work. Yeah. Yeah, well, you don't want to be in not hot water. Don't go in a hot tub of water. Yeah, lukewarm water. Although I like hot showers and I like a hot tub, so it's a little hard, but cold work. Yeah, because then you're mitigating that nerve to brain message, and you're cutting it off at its tracks. Yeah, so that'll work. Yeah. Yep.
Even now that I don't have the itching, I still, again, I only shower 3 times a week and it is quick and the water is lukewarm to cool. Yes, me too.
Yeah, it's probably good practice. I'm not good. I like hot showers. Don't tell anybody. Yeah.
What's the ratio of shea butter to coconut oil in Africa?
So what I do is I take a cup of raw shea butter and a cup, so it's equal ratio. So then that's for my skin. For someone else, that maybe they may back up a little bit off of the coconut oil because they may find it a little too oily for them. But I had dry skin anyway. And so then when the CTCL came, of course, it made it even more dry. And so for me, a cup to cup works perfect. Yes, absolutely. And then on my face, I don't put the shea butter mixture on my face. I use straight coconut oil on my face. Yes, I do. Well, you know what? At night, I really don't, unless I feel my skin feels kind of itchy or tight or something. Typically, it's just for now because I'm good right now. My skin is looking good, it's feeling good, and so I just do it once in the morning. Now, I will tell you, my hands though, I take a little mixture of it in my purse because throughout the day when I wash my hands and stuff, I want to make sure that I hydrate them right back. Yes. So typically, you can get it at most cities have like a international market or an African market, and they're going to have raw shea butter. Yeah, my ex-husband is from Gambia, West Africa, so they send it to me.
Very nice. I bet you could
But
probably get it on-
typically, you can get it at an African market or an international market. You're welcome.
I bet Amazon has it.
Amazon
have
Amazon has
everything.
everything.
But just make sure that there's nothing in it, right? It's
Mix it
raw,
with any
nothing.
perfume or anything. You just want the raw shea butter.